Due Process, awarded 9 Emmys, including the 2005 New York Emmy for Outstanding Crime Reporting Programming.
It was right after the attacks in 9th grade. My mother took me out of school at Toms River South because the school said that they could not guarantee my safety.
It was vicious and traumatic, and it went on for years, in school and out. But now the state Supreme Court has ruled that schools can be held responsible when students harass other students. Bullying, just one of the issues under debate at the State Bar's annual meeting. And our focus for this special edition, on location in Atlantic City. That's next on Due Process.
Major funding for Due Process provided by the New Jersey State Bar Foundation, committed to educating the public about the law, and by the Fund for New Jersey, supporting informed citizens for an effective democracy. Additional funding provided by Lawyer's Diary and Manual and online legal reference, elaw.com.
Just what can students expect from their schools? Is it too much to ask to be free of abuse from other students? The state Supreme Court now says no. I'm Raymond Brown, and we're talking about bullying, the verbal and physical harassment that can turn a school day into a kid's nightmare. And if this edition of Due Process has a different look and sound, it's because we're not in the studio, but in the field in Atlantic City at the State Bar's annual meeting. New Jersey's legal community is gathered here to install a new president, Lynn Fontaine Newsom, and to explore some critical issues of state law. This year, that includes a student's right to be free of bias-based bullying, and Sandy King is here to explain.
Raymond, the Supreme Court's ruling gives New Jersey students far greater protection than they've ever had before, greater than their peers in the rest of the country from student-on-student abuse. And school districts have been put on notice. If you know about a problem and you fail to correct it, you can be held liable. The concept is new, but the problem of bullying is not. It's in our literature, in our memories, and in our movies.
Just run away, Forrest. Run, Forrest!
Forrest Gump, not just escaping his tormentors, but turning vanquish into victory. It's a wonderful image, but it's just in the movies.
It was just, walking down the hallway and people calling you names and shouting things out. It definitely made it tough to go through on a daily basis.
In real life, being the target of bullies can be a relentless, painful process, as this man knows all too well.
I went to a school and I felt unsafe. My mom felt worried about sending me to school, with me getting hurt or even my life being endangered.
In court papers, he was just L.W., an anonymous gay teen who said he suffered years of harassment at the hands of his schoolmates.
That would tease me and taunt me about my sexual orientation.
Give me a paw.
But Lewis White, now 21 and unashamedly gay, has chosen to go public with a story of abuse. Abuse that started before he even knew what gay meant.
It basically grew from 4th grade verbal, 5th grade verbal, 6th grade verbal, 7th grade physical. It got physical in 7th grade.
And it continued on into high school, despite what the school district contends were ongoing attempts to protect him.
The students were disciplined, they were suspended from school, and they were told anything further they could possibly be expelled from school.
But were the Toms River efforts all that they should have been?
Our position is it's not tolerated, period, any kind of sexual harassment.
But all too often, Lewis says,
I still got bullied and the school didn't do anything about it then.
Their defense was They said, you know, every time we heard about an incident, we brought in a kid, we talked to him, we did something, you know, we had a sanction. That's not good enough. This stuff still went on.
So Lewis and his mother brought their story to the State Division on Civil Rights, where their claims were upheld.
But the greatest thing of all is the basis on which he ruled in favor of the kid.
Division on Civil Rights, Director's Office.
Papaleo said, hey, you know that toxic workplace standard? That should apply to kids.
And in a series of appeals, the case went all the way to the state Supreme Court, where the Chief Justice wrote the opinion.
You know, high school bullying is a hate crime. I would definitely personally classify that as a hate crime.
And though Chief Justice Azali didn't go that route, his opinion did break new legal ground, as he too extended workplace protections to kids in school. Students in the classrooms, Azali wrote, are entitled to no less protection from unlawful discrimination and harassment than their adult counterparts in the workplace.
A school can be a toxic workplace for a kid, even if they address this incident and that incident. They didn't do enough to change the culture of the place, to make sure this kid was protected, safe, and supported.
But the concept of the toxic schoolhouse is not without its critics.
In school, they said you have to take the individual student and look at the circumstances and determine how to discipline the student while educating him. And that's significant, because I don't see any case that says in the workplace you educate people. If you don't do what's appropriate, you're gone. Can't fire the students. They're with us. And I think that's the difference, significant difference.
The most important thing to me in this case is the fact that now kids in schools can just be safe, because there is going to be that law that is set that schools will have to act and react to whatever the student comes forth with about bullying. So that was the most important thing to me, and not only my mom.
But the court didn't make a decision on whether the Toms River response in the case of Lewis White had in fact been reasonable. Instead, it remanded the case back to an administrative law court to determine whether White should receive cash damages and how much those should be. But it's sure to be nothing like what an Australian court's rewarded in a far more extreme case of school bullying. In that case, the court said that a student's psyche had been virtually destroyed by school bullies, and Raymond had ordered the school district to pay as much as $1 million.
And Sandy, when we come back, we'll get reactions to the ruling here in New Jersey from a gay rights leader, a school board's lawyer, and the State Bar Foundation staffer in charge of conflict resolution. But first, some opinions from the bullying panel featured at the State Bar annual meeting.
They're frustrated, they're confused, they don't know where to go, and they're overwhelmed. And these are the schools that I say are the stuck-in-the-mud schools. These are the schools that have developed their own model policies, and according to what they tell me, they say they're cumbersome, they're ineffective, and they don't know what to do. It's not that they don't want to address bullying, but they have not received the proper training.
But LAD has created a specific issue. It's given an opportunity. You could have a child that's bullied, but then you also have Title 59. And I don't mean to talk like a lawyer, but Title 59 is a protection to public entities as to the type of injury that the person must have before they can bring a claim.
None of the calls that we get at Lambda Legal in our New York office and our regional office every day from young people, from their parents, and these are young people who are going under. They experience on a daily basis this fear of going to school, this inability to concentrate in the classroom because they don't know when they're going to get hit on the back of the head, this fear to use the hallways to go from class to class, such that they will now use exit doors to go around the school building to get to a different class.
As a non-specialist reading LW, my impression it was of a circumstance where the court was expressing concern that there was an environment being created in which protection wasn't being extended to this child. And words thrown around like progressive discipline and zero tolerance that suggest that there is some established concept about how administrators and educators are supposed to be handling these problems.
I mean, I'd like to say that the boards that I represent and the boards from which I'm familiar have good policies, good training, and that is going on. I can't deny, as Cynthia mentioned, I can't deny that there are boards out there that may have the larger disconnect between policy and implementation. But I do think that that's going to come around, in particular because LW is going to force boards to do that.
One thing that the court, tried to make clear is that students in schools are entitled to the same level of protection against harassment and bullying as adults are in the workplace. And the one thing about these school districts is that they're also all employers. So they do have experience in dealing with these issues as employers. And in some respects, they have to apply kind of the same things they're doing as if in the employment setting, do they do with the students.
We're talking about a sweeping state Supreme Court ruling on school bullying. We're here in Atlantic City at the State Bar's annual meeting. And joining me are Stephen Goldstein, chairman of Garden State Equality, Nathania Simon, an education lawyer who represents school boards, and Lisa Ann Smith, who handles conflict resolution for the New Jersey Bar Foundation. In the interest of full disclosure, the Bar Foundation is also a major funder of due process. Welcome to all of you. Stephen, let me start with you.
Sure.
The story painted by the Chief Justice in the case LW is one of a kid who started with verbal harassment and words, and it metastasized to the point of harassment. And it had the capacity to have destroyed his life, although it doesn't appear to have done that, maybe because of dramatic legal intervention. How frequent a story is that a child, student, based on association or on particularly questions of sexual orientation, faces that kind of a life? Is that common in New Jersey?
Raymond, it happens every single day in New Jersey and in schools across the country. I was bullied to pieces as a student. I'm 45 years old. I still feel the psychological effects. I actually grew up in New York City, which had very progressive policies against bullying. It started out with name calling. It wound up being relentless, beating me up to a pulp. My parents got involved, and only when they threatened legal action was something done. It took legal action.
All right, we're going to come back to legal action, but Nathania, you represent school boards.
Yes.
Is that your experience from talking to school board members, and both before and after this Supreme Court opinion, are you hearing that it's happening in a widespread manner the way Stephen describes?
I don't think that there has been a real recognition of that being so pervasive, but certainly with this case, it has come to the forefront.
When you say there hasn't been a wide recognition, is it your sense that school board members are in denial or just learning about it, or?
I wouldn't say denial or just learning about it. I think that this is a reflection of our society. I think we all know the phrase, boys will be boys, and things of that nature that we kind of expect with adolescence, that there is going to be a certain amount of teasing and a certain amount of joyful play, that also some days a child is one child's best friend, and the next day they're fighting, and then the next day they're best friends again. So schools have sort of taken an approach that until it becomes really brought to their attention that the student is being academically or emotionally or socially affected, they try to take a hands-off approach.
But this case imposes really a duty on the school boards to become much, so there's going to have to be change.
There has definitely been a change since it even started at the Division on Civil Rights.
We're talking from February to May, or at least over the last year.
I would say over the past 2 years.
Let me, Lisa Ann, have you seen a change in the last 2 years as this case has worked its way up through the system and people have learned about it?
I think there's a recognition, Ray, but I have not seen the kind of systemic change that you would expect administrators and those that are...
What do you mean by systemic change? What do you want to see?
I want to see LW bring the educational community back to the drawing board in a very thoughtful and honest manner to reassess each building in the state of New Jersey, and they need to look long and hard at the culture and climate of each individual building and not address bullying in a piecemeal fashion.
Stephen, there is a sense in which I think broadly in the community people are willing to say, well, boys will be boys, they're aggressive, there's always going to be one kid on top one day and another the next. But with respect to kids, especially when we're talking about sexual orientation, where there's part of the community that is homophobic and promotes this, is this easily distinguishable from the kind of interplay that you're going to expect among kids?
Raymond, kids want to commit suicide because of bullying. They want to kill themselves because they're called faggot and gay. The number 2 word in our schools today that's used as a put down is gay. And the schools aren't doing enough about it, and it escalates rather quickly from name-calling to violence against the bullied kid to the bullied kid often wanting to take his or her own life.
The Supreme... Go ahead.
I have to disagree. I think that over the past 2 years particularly, where the state has put a total emphasis on this, both by state law, by board policy, by this decision that started really years before the New Jersey Supreme Court became involved, there has been a tremendous recognition and emphasis upon making sure that both the community and its staff and the student body are aware that this will not be tolerated. And I have seen it at many, many boards.
Lisa Ann, I don't want to paint you as neutral, but it seems to me we have two people of goodwill with a differing view about whether school boards are responding. Nathaniel says yes, Stephen says no. What about that gap? Why is there that gap in perception? What do you think?
I don't think school boards have responded. I don't think that LW has had a resonating effect, and I think that school boards, unfortunately, are still addressing this in a catch-can manner, and they're still doing the quick and dirty, and they're still very married to the lose-lose propositions by being very married to bringing in guest speakers throughout the course of the school year, running 25 videos, buying a $1,500 curriculum that sits in the basement collecting dust. They don't get systemic training from top to bottom, and it cannot be quick and dirty, and they've not done that.
Raymond, I can't let a statement go. Nathaniel, with all due respect, we at Garden State Equality get hundreds of calls every month from parents who are begging for school boards, for teachers, for parents to take bullying more seriously. We can't make a blanket statement in New Jersey that schools are taking bullying seriously. Some are, too many aren't. It's a tragedy, it's an emergency. We get kids calling us who want to commit suicide. When we get those calls, you can't possibly say that schools blanketly are taking this problem seriously. We get the calls.
Well, instead of calling you, what they should be doing is speaking with the people that can help them, and that is the process.
But with an attitude like you're having, why would they call?
No, we have
Why
an
would they call?
We have
because
an
you're doubting it's happening.
No,
Lisa Ann,
why would they call? I wouldn't call you.
Let Nathaniel finish.
What I'm saying is that there is, in every school district in the state of New Jersey right now, policies and procedures that have been incorporated as part of the fabric of that institution, whereby there is a process for reporting any incident of
Lisa
any
Ann says
nature.
the policies and programs are in place, but they're not in effect. What do you
They
think
are
about-
in effect, and every student, to my knowledge, that has ever reported an incident of bullying or harassment has had the process implicated by an affirmative action officer or a substance abuse
Let me
counselor.
focus on a point of difference between you and Stephen, which is who should the call be made to? Lisa Ann, I know you have some thoughts about what would be the proper way for a school to be structured so that kids would know who to call.
If I may, I do want to concur with Stephen. I too, as the Bar Foundation person who runs the anti-bullying program, can tell you, I receive emails, sometimes 3 and 4 pages long, from parents. The specificity of the torment that these children are experiencing on a daily basis would make your hair stand up, and I get them daily.
So if they're not calling somebody designated and trained in the school, does that tell you something?
But Ray, let me tell you, some of them do go to administrators, and some of them get the door shut in their face. I'm not saying all, but many of them do. Many of them do not have any other recourse. I do urge them to go to administrators. I urge them to work with the school. But trust me when I tell you, and I want to just throw out a statistic, I am in a very unique position. I know what's going on in the state because the Bar Foundation does the most training of any organization in the state in anti-bullying work. And when I do a training, and I have 30 educators in my training room, and I ask them, how many of you, raise your hands anonymously, are aware that New Jersey is one of the states that has a law in place? On a good day, I will have 10 hands raised. That's on a good day. Most of these educators don't even know that there's a law in place. That tells me that the administration is not doing it.
Let me broaden the discussion a bit. We've focused on the experience of gay kids because that's what LW was about. But I'm sure you've all thought about the fact that kids get harassed often for other things, for seeming not to be smart, for maybe being physically not up to par in terms of athletics, a host of reasons that are not obviously covered by the law against discrimination. What happens to those kids, and is that something you're also concerned about, Steve?
You bet. And what we would want to see is accountability. Accountability where teachers and principals and others who have administrative roles in the school system are held accountable. And yes, if there's bullying in a school and nothing is done about it, for teachers' jobs to be evaluated based on what are they doing, for principals' jobs to be evaluated based on what are they doing about bullying.
Right, Nathania, it's clear that under the law against discrimination, at least under LW, kids who are harassed because of race, religion, or traditionally protected categories under the law are going to be protected by a statute that says legal fees can be paid, which helps grease the wheels of justice.
Yes.
But there are other categories that are not covered under those statutes. Are those kids who are fat, kids who run slowly, kids who are just different? Are those kids outside the pale of legal protection? What's there for them?
Well, again, I don't think that it's just a matter of legal protection. I think that what school districts are sensitive to is making sure that everyone in that environment is aware that it is a welcoming environment, a safe environment for a diverse population. And one thing we haven't talked about, which I think is very, very significant, is that schools are a public entity. They welcome children from whatever background they come from. And it is very often that some of these children who are not only victims themselves, but are perpetrators of these incidences and have their own issues to deal with. And so I think what needs to be understood is that it's not just a matter of punishment and training. It's a matter of making sure that everyone understands that there are students who have behavioral disorders that have to be looked at, that they have protection as well, and that teachers have protection.
Let me make sure I get Lisa Ann's view on kids who are not protected under the LAD, the traditional classifications. Are those kids adequately protected?
No, and they fall through the cracks because you have children who are bullied, who are not in the protected class, and they are virtually left out to drown because unless their parents have enormous financial resources, most of whom don't, there are a handful of attorneys in the state who will take these cases on a sliding scale. So they are really left out with absolutely no protection.
That leaves us with a question that always comes up. It's hard to get a handle on it, but it's the question of the parents' role. I mean, there are often going to be parents who are not equipped to go in and fight for their kids. But where does the parent fit into this picture of somebody who's going to raise the issue so either an educator or a lawyer or somebody else champions this kid's cause?
Well, Raymond, I would like every school to have a child advocate who keeps an eye out specifically for bullying, who works with teachers and the parents.
For example, a gay kid might have already been thrown out of his home. I mean, there may be kids who don't have a parental relationship that's going to work for them. What happens to those kids?
That's a problem. It's not an either-or situation. Schools have to do more, but schools should also work with parents more. You could do both.
Nathania, do you have a special concern about kids who don't have a parent who's equipped for whatever reason to come in and champion the kid's cause?
Well, I think that most students who don't have parents do have other advocacy groups that do watch out for them, as well as if they are...
Give me an example who you were thinking.
Well, a lot of times children are under the care of DYFS and social workers and agencies of that sort. Additionally, when a student is a classified student, it is mandated within that federal and state model to have an advocate for those children.
We're down to our last minute. Lisa Ann, about the kid who doesn't have a biological or immediate parent to fight for him. Are those kids especially vulnerable, or, as Nathania says, are they protected other ways?
They're especially vulnerable, Ray, because they don't have a voice, and they don't have anybody who's going to stand up and be a voice for them. And the bottom line is, this is the school's responsibility, parent or no parent. Schools have a responsibility to keep children safe. They have a legal responsibility, they have a moral responsibility, and they have an ethical responsibility, and they aren't doing it.
Stephen, I'll give you the last word in terms of whether you're hopeful or not in light of LW.
I am hopeful. The LW decision was one of the best decisions delivered by the New Jersey Supreme Court in our lifetime.
I'll hate to do it. Agree or disagree?
At least we can agree that I am
Lisa
hopeful.
Okay. Well, it appears that we are on an uncharacteristic note of agreement. It does seem like this is an important enough issue that bring you back again to continue this discussion. But for now, it's a goodbye with my thanks to Stephen Goldstein, Nathania Simon, and Lisa Ann Smith. That's it for this special edition of Due Process. We've been here in Atlantic City at the New Jersey State Bar Association's annual meeting, but we'll be back in the studio next week with another cutting-edge issue of law and justice. Till then, for Sandy King and all of us here at Due Process, I'm Raymond Brown. Thanks for watching.
Anti-discrimination statutes come into being and evolve over time as they add enumerated categories, because classes of individuals are found to being pushed out of society. They're being found to suffer to a degree that means we are losing them. We're not assimilating them. We're not bringing them into the fabric of society. Instead, we're pushing them out. We're harming them. We are creating people who have no stake in our society. Anti-discrimination statutes address that. When they see the class, the legislature takes that category and puts it in the statute. So to the extent you're concerned about other children, anytime we see children in another class, and I'm not going to be surprised if we will, most recently gender identity was added just this year. That should be addressed. But in the meantime, there is tort law, there is constitutional law, there are other avenues to stop what should be stopped.
Major funding for Due Process provided by the New Jersey State Bar Foundation, committed to educating the public about the law, and by the Fund for New Jersey, supporting informed citizens for an effective democracy. Additional funding provided by Lawyer's Diary and Manual and online legal reference, elaw.com.